Hello, listening squirrels. I'm going to read part 1 of chapter 2 because it does have 28 pages, counted yesterday. Chapter 2 is called Old Friends with New Faces. It's so good to be home again. I wonder how we ever made up our minds to go away, exclaimed Rose as she went roaming about the old house next morning, full of satisfaction one feels at revisiting familiar nooks and corners and finding them unchanged. That we might have the pleasure of coming back again, answered Phoebe, walking down the hall beside her little mistress as happy as she. Everything seems just as we left it, even to the rose leaves we used to tuck in here, continued the younger girl, peeping into one of the tall India jars that stood about the hall. Don't you remember how Jamie and Pokey used to play 40 Thieves with them, and how you tried to get into that blue one and got stuck? The other boys found us before I could pull you out, asked Phoebe, laughing. Yes, indeed. And speaking of angels, one is apt to hear the rustling of their wings, added Rose, as a shrill whistle came up the avenue accompanied by the clatter of hooves. It is the circus, cried Phoebe gaily as they both recalled the red cart and the charge of the clan. There was only one boy now, alas, but he made noise enough for half a dozen. And before Rose could run to the door, Jamie came bouncing in with a shining morning face, a bat over his shoulder, a red and white jockey cap on his head, one pocket bulging with a big ball and the other overflowing with cookies, and his mouth full of the apple he was just finishing off in hot haste. Morning! I just looked in to make sure you'd really come and see that you were all right, he observed, saluting with bat and doffing the gay cap with one effective twitch. Good morning, dear. Yes, we really are here and getting to rights as fast as possible. But it seems to me you're rather gorgeous, Jamie. What do you belong to, a fire company or a jockey club? asked Rose, turning up the once chubby face, which now was getting brown and square under the chin. No, ma'am. Why don't you know? I'm captain of the Baseball Star Club. Look at that, will you? And as if the fact were one of the national importance, Jamie flung open his jacket to display upon his proudly swelling chest a heart-shaped red flannel shield decorated with a white cotton star the size of a tea plate. Superb! I've been away so long I forgot there was such a game, and you the captain, cried Rose, deeply impressed by the high honor to which her kinsman had arrived. I just am, and it's no joke, you'd better believe, for we'd knock our teeth out, black our eyes, and split our fingers almost as well as the big fellas. You come down to the common between 1 and 2 and see us play a match, then you'll understand what hard work it is. I'll teach you to bat now if you'll come out on the lawn, added Jamie, fired with a wish to exhibit his prowess. No, thank you, Captain. The grass is wet, and you'll be late at school if you stay for us. I'm not afraid. Girls are not good for much generally, but you never used to mind a little wet and played cricket like a good one. Can't you ever do that sort of thing now? Asked the boy with a pitying look at these hapless creatures debarred from the joys and perils of manly sports. I can run still, and I'll get to the gate before you. See if I don't. And yielding to the impulse of the moment, Rose darted down the steps before astonished Jamie could mount and follow. He was off in a moment, but Rose had the start, and though old Shelty did his best, she reached the goal just ahead and stood there laughing and panting, all rosy and fresh October air. a pretty picture for several gentlemen who were driving by. "Good for you, Rose," said Archie, jumping out to shake hands while Will and Geordie saluted, and Uncle Mac laughed at Jamie, who looked as if the girls had risen slightly in his opinion. "I'm glad it's you because you won't be shocked, but I'm so happy to be back I forgot I was not little Rose still," said Adelana, smoothing down her flying hair. "You look very like her with the curls on your shoulders in that old way. I missed them last night and wondered what it was. How are Uncle and Phoebe?" asked Archie, whose eyes had been looking over Rose's head while he spoke toward the piazza, where a female figure was visible among the reddening woodbines. "Ah, well, thanks. Won't you come up and see for yourselves?" "Oh, well." "Can't, my dear. Can't possibly. Business, you know, business. This fellow is my right-hand man, and I can't spare him a minute." "Come, Arch, we must be off, or these boys will miss their train," answered Uncle Mac, pulling out his watch. With a last look from the light-haired figure at the gate to the dark-haired one among the vines, Archie drove away, and Jamie cantered after, consoling himself for his defeat with apple number 2. Rose lingered a moment, feeling much inclined to continue her run and pop in upon the aunts in succession, but remembering her uncovered head, was about to turn back when a cheerful "Ahoy! Ahoy!" made her look up to see Mac approaching at a great pace, waving his hat as he came. "The Campbells are back, thick and fast this morning, and the more the merrier," she said, running to meet him. "You look like a good boy going to school and virtuously conning your lesson by the way," she added, smiling to see him take his finger out of the book he had evidently been reading and tuck it under his arm just as he used to do years ago. "I am a schoolboy. Going to school I like best," he answered, waving a plummy spray of asters as if pointing out the lovely autumn world about them, full of gay hues, fresh airs, and mellow sunshine. "That reminds me that I didn't get a chance to hear much about your plans last night. The other boys talked all at once, and you only got a word now and then. What have you decided to be, Mac?" asked Rose as they went up the avenue side by side. Sorry about that. Sorry. Side by side, side by side, side by side. Where is it? "A man first, and a good one if possible. After that, what God pleases." Yeah. Something in the tone as well as the words made Rose look up quickly into Mac's face to see a new expression there. It was indescribable, but she felt as she had often done when watching the mist part suddenly, giving glimpses of some mountain top shining serene and high against the blue. "I think you will be something splendid, for you really look quite glorified walking under this arch of yellow leaves with the sunshine on your face," she exclaimed, conscious of a sudden admiration never felt before, for Mac was the plainest of all the cousins. "I don't know about that, but I have my dreams and aspirations, and some of them are pretty high ones. Aim at your best, you know, and keep climbing if you want to get on," he said, looking at the asters with an inward sort of smile, as if he and they had some sweet secret between them. "You are queerer than ever, but I like your ambition, and I hope you will get on. Only mustn't you begin at something soon? I fancied you would study medicine with Uncle. That used to be our plan, you know." "I shall, for the present at least, because I quite agree with you that it is necessary to have an anchor somewhere and not go floating off into the world of imagination without ballast of the right sort. Uncle and I had some talk about it last night, and I'm going to begin as soon as possible, for I've mooned long enough." And giving himself a shake, Mac threw down the pretty spray, adding half aloud, "Chide me not, laborious band, for the idle flowers I brought. Every aster in my hand goes home laden with a thought." Rose caught the words and smiled, thinking to herself, "Oh, that's it. He's getting into the sentimental age, and Aunt Jane has been lecturing him. Dear me, how we are growing up. You look as if you didn't like the prospect very well," she said aloud, for Mac had rammed the volume of Shelley into his pocket, and the glorified expression was so entirely gone. Rose fancied she'd been mistaken about the mountaintop behind the mist. "Yes, well enough. I always thought the profession a grand one, and where could I find a better teacher than Uncle? I've got into lazy ways lately, and it's high time I went at something useful, so here I go." And Mac abruptly vanished into the study while Rose joined Phoebe in Aunt Plenty's room. The dear old lady had just decided, after long and earnest discussion, which of 6 favorite puddings should be served for dinner, and thus had a few moments to devote to sentiment. So when Rose came in, she held out her arms, saying fondly, "I shall not feel as if I'd got my child back again until I have her in my lap a minute." "No, you're not a bit too heavy. My rheumatism doesn't begin much before November, so sit here, darling, and put your 2 arms around my neck." Rose obeyed, and neither spoke for a moment as the old woman held the young one close and appeased the 2 years' longing of a motherly heart by the caresses women give the creatures dearest to them. Right in the middle of a kiss, however, she stopped suddenly, and holding out one arm, caught Phoebe, who was trying to steal away unobserved. "Don't go. There's room for both in my love, though there isn't in my lap. I'm so grateful to get my dear girls safely home again that I hardly know what I'm about," said Aunt Plenty, embracing Phoebe so heartily that she could not feel left out in the cold, and stood there with her black eyes shining through the happiest tears. "There now, I've had a good hug and feel as if it was all right again. I wish you'd set that cap in order. Rose. I went to bed in such a hurry I pulled the strings off it and left it all in a heap. Phoebe, dear, you shall dust round a mite just as you used to do, for I haven't had anyone do it as I like since you've been gone, and it will do me good to see my knick-knacks straightened out in your tidy way," said the elder lady, getting up with a refreshed expression on her rosy old face. I thought she wasn't to do that kind of stuff anymore. "Shall I dust in here too?" asked Phoebe, glancing toward an inner room which used to be her care. "No, dear, I'd rather do that myself. Go in if you like. Nothing has changed. I must go and see to my pudding." And Aunt Plenty trotted abruptly away with a quiver of emotion in her voice which made even her last words pathetic. Pausing onto the threshold as if it was a sacred place, the girls looked in with eyes soon dimmed by tender tears, for it seemed as if the gentle occupant was still there. Sunshine shone on the old geraniums by the window. The cushioned chair stood in its accustomed place, with the white wrapper hung across it and the faded slippers lying ready. Books and basket, knitting and spectacles were all just as she had left them, and the beautiful tranquility that always filled the room seemed so natural. Both lookers turned involuntarily toward the bed where Aunt Peace used to greet them with a smile. There was no sweet old face upon the pillow now, yet the tears that wet the blooming cheeks were not for her. who had gone, but for her who was left, because they saw something which spoke eloquently of the love which outlives death and makes the humblest things beautiful and sacred. A well-worn footstool stood beside the bed, and in the high-piled whiteness of the empty couch there was a little hollow where a gray head nightly rested while Aunt Plenty said the prayers her mother taught her 70 years ago. Without a word, the girls softly shut the door while Aunt Phoebe put the room in the most exquisite order. Rose retrimmed the plain white cup, where pink and yellow ribbons never rustled now, both feeling honored by their task, and better for their knowledge of the faithful love and piety which sanctified a good old woman's life. You darling creature, I'm so glad to get you back. I know it's shamefully early, but I really couldn't keep away another minute. Let me help you. I'm dying to see all your splendid things. I saw the trunks pass, and I know you've quantities of treasures, cried Annabel Bliss all in one breath as she embraced Rose an hour later, and glanced about the room, bestrewn with a variety of agreeable objects. How well you're looking. Sit down and I'll show you my lovely photographs. Uncle chose all the best for me, and it's a treat to see them, answered Rose, putting a roll on the table and looking about for more. Oh, thanks. I haven't time now. One needs hours to study such things. Show me your Paris dresses. There's a dear. I'm perfectly aching to see the latest styles. And Annabel cast a hungry eye toward certain large boxes delightedly suggestive of French finery. I haven't got any, said Rose, fondly surveying the fine photographs as she laid them away. Rose Campbell, you don't mean to say you didn't get one Paris dress at least? Cried Annabel, scandalized at the bare idea of such neglect. Not one for myself. Aunt Clara ordered several, and will be charmed to show them when her box comes. Such a chance right there, and plenty of money. How could you love your uncle after such cruelty? Sighed Annabel with a face full of sympathy. Rose looked puzzled for a minute, then seemed to understand and assumed a superior air which became her very well as she said good-naturedly, opening a box of laces, Uncle did not forbid my doing it, and I had money enough, but I chose not to spend it on things of that sort. Could and didn't. I can't believe it. And Annabel sank into a chair as if the thought was too much for her. I did rather want to at first, just for the fun of the thing. In fact, I went and looked at some amazing gowns, but they were very expensive, very much trimmed, and not my style at all. So I gave them up and kept what I valued more than all the gowns, worth every maid. What in the world was it? Cried Annabel, hoping she would say diamonds. Uncle's good opinion, answered Rose, looking thoughtfully into the depths of a packing case where lay the lovely picture that would always remind her of the little triumph over girlish vanity which not only kept her increased Uncle's good opinion. Oh, indeed, said Annabel blankly, and fell to examining examining Aunt Plenty's lace while Rose went on with a happy smile in her eyes as she dived into another trunk. Uncle thinks one has no right to waste money on such things, but he is very generous and loves to give useful, beautiful, or curious gifts. See, all these pretty ornaments are for presents, and you shall choose first whatever you like. He's a perfect dear, cried Annabelle, reveling in the crystal, filigree, coral, and mosaic trinkets spread before her, while Rose completed her rapture by adding sundry tasteful trifles fresh from Paris. And that's where I must stop, because that's about half the chapter. I went through and marked it. So we will stop there for part 1. I hope you enjoyed it. And I know it's kind of early yet to tell, but... And I forgot to show a darn good yarn that came. And it's a sport weight. There's 150 yards in this little cake. I just love this reclaimed silk. Sport weight silk yarn entitled, the color's Twisting Rainbows. Hope I've got some more, because they just have 150 yards in each. And she actually gave us... Now, we used to just get one yarn and one extra, and then they started doubling. And mind you, I still get my box for $10. But because it's Nicole's birthday, Nicole Snow, the owner of Darn Good Yarn, where did I see that? There's a little note in here that said, "It's Nicole's birthday. She's the founder of DGY. She wanted to give you a special gift, an extra skein of yarn for free. Enjoy, and be sure to tell your friends about us. XOXO, Team Darn Good Yarn." And I just love it. Pretty. I hope I have at least one more, like I said, so I'll have 600 yards. That's what I need, at least, to make a decent size something. Shawl, poncho, whatever. But if I don't have one, I can always get one later. Love you bunches. Be sweet, don't be ugly. See you around. Love ya. Bye.